What's good, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael, and today we're going to be talking about some of the cons of purchasing a retired police vehicle. Now, you might be wondering, man, I didn't know I could buy a retired police vehicle. Well, you can, and that's super common to actually do. I made a whole video dedicated to the pros of purchasing one of these vehicles, so I recommend you watch those first. But for those people who have already seen that video, with any purchase, there's things you should consider. And we're going to start off with a big one, which is the paint of the vehicle. Now, people who buy these secondhand typically are not returning them back to service. And so, the first thing they will do is pull these police vehicle decals off. And when they do it, every time I've seen it, they end up damaging the paint. But the paint isn't in good condition to begin with. That's not a pro, that's another con. They'll be dinged and dented and scratched, especially up in this light bar area. I'm not sure how much the camera's actually picking up, but please keep in mind that these are service vehicles, and so they're not being treated in the same way that you would treat a personal vehicle. They are being regularly maintained as far as maintenance intervals go, but as far as paint condition, it's not going to be the same. And because these are service vehicles, they're going to have a much harder life than they would normally, right? Like, they are doing service work, and part of that is getting in dangerous situations. So although it may have a clean title, does not mean it has not been in an accident. Look at this. Panel doesn't line up. Here, panel definitely does not line up. Look at the panel gap here. This looks okay. This does not. Super duper tight. These are just some telltale signs as to whether it's been in an accident or not. And in fact, this one has been in two. Now, even if it hasn't been in an accident, it may look like it was. And the reason for that is that when they pull equipment out, for example, these red and blue lights that used to be here, they will do it in the most efficient way possible. So they probably just ripped this out, pulled that out so that they could reuse it for the new vehicle, and had no regard for the push clip and whether it was damaged or not. A common thing they will do is pull out the center consoles. Most of them will have no center console. You can get aftermarket support for that, but something you should budget for. If you do have the center console left, that means you'll probably also have the switches and you'll have the fuse box. If that's the case, they don't want you turning on red and blue lights, so what will they do? They'll just start cutting the wires, and then they'll leave them there for you to figure out what to do with later. So, yeah. And then we know that a lot of police officers aren't in the best shape that they probably should be. And in addition to that, they have a bunch of equipment. They have the utility belt, so they will be sliding in and out of these seats nonstop. Every vehicle I have seen has had some extent of a rip or tear on the driver's side. You can see that I restitched this and I restitched this, because oftentimes you'll get these and they didn't even try to repair them. They don't care. It's not their personal vehicle. I could have, cleaned this up and this up. I just don't care enough about it. Oh, another thing, these will commonly start tearing here, so you can see I restitched that as well. I'm going to show you the other vehicle because this one's in a lot better condition. It really is, and that's something you have to keep in mind with these vehicles, is they're not all equal and they're not all treated the same. Look at that seat. Night and day difference. That looks way, way better. Same with this. Now, something I forgot on the exterior. If you look at the white vehicle over there, you'll notice that that white vehicle has all of the antennas still on it, but the black one does not. And so what they will do is they will plug the holes with silicone. Now, this particular police department did a really good job at it. Like, I have no doubt that this will not leak. I have seen a vehicle. I actually owned it at the time. It was really bad. Like, I wasn't totally confident that it wasn't going to leak. Now, talking about the back, you have two main options. There are more than two, but for the sake of the video, we'll talk about two. You either have the vinyl seats or the plastic seats. The vinyl seats are great because they're comfortable and they look like normal seats, just without the headrest here. With that being said, space will be very, very tight. Now this has a partition in, but let's just take this one for example, because you can take that partition out. The legroom is still going to be way tighter than what it would be on a normal Explorer. So you probably want the vinyl seats because they're more comfortable, they look more normal. With that being said, legroom's going to be limited. Now, you notice that this one has its little thingy, right? Don't even know what it's called. This one does not. And I guarantee you, if I were to turn the car on and try to use this, it also would not work. The reason for that is they don't want people hopping out the back, right? Like if you're back here, you're in trouble. You're going where they want you to, not where you want to. So they will actually disable this. You can pull the panel off. You can reinstall that piece. You can reconnect the wires. You could do these things. But it's something that you should consider and something that you probably wouldn't consider if somebody hadn't mentioned it before. The other big thing is that the interiors. You see them, they look clean. They're going to be filthy, like disgusting. And so you need to get them professionally detailed. That's just a non-negotiable. Every one that I've seen has been disgusting on the inside. That's just, you know, spitting the truth. Now, two more things I want to talk about. The first one is the age of the engine. What I mean by that is that a lot of times you look at the odometer of a vehicle, and based on that you can determine how much life you have left. With these service vehicles, that's not necessarily the case. And the reason for that is that they spend a lot of time idling. Idling meaning that the police officer is just sitting off the side of the road or in a parking lot or at a stoplight. Just, you know, he's just making sure that the area is safe. He's not actually driving in that moment. Ford knows this. And so they actually have something called idle hours that they will track on the vehicle. And according to them, 33 miles is equivalent to 1 idle engine hour. I will be frank, I do not believe this at all. The reason I don't believe this is that I've seen these, when accounting for the idle engine hours, go well over 500,000. With that being said, the premise is still the same. If it has more idle engine hours, you should account for that because although they're not driving, the engine is still on and therefore putting more wear on the engine. So all that to say, even though this one has 115,000 miles, even though that one has less than 100,000 miles, it's not equivalent to an Explorer with 100,000 or an Explorer with 115. These are actually much older engines. Now, these are pretty stout engines, the 3.7 liter V6. However, they do have one Achilles heel that is well known, and that is the water pump. If you go to the passenger side, you crawl underneath the vehicle, you will see a weep hole. And in that weep hole, there may be fluid, right? Like you can see whether something's been wet or not. Put your hand and touch it, and if it's like a neon color, it's coolant. If it smells sweet, it's coolant. That's about a $2,000 repair, which is super expensive. If something is misfiring or needs a water pump replacement specifically for these vehicles, I don't touch it with a 10-yard stick. So that's the end of the video. I'll summarize it real quick because I know this has been a long one. The first con is the condition of the paint. The second con is that the driver's seat will have tears. The third con is that the back seats typically will not have the same comfort that they would normally in an Explorer. And the fourth con is that these are probably a lot older than you would think at a glance. So all of these cons, they're kind of avoidable. There's ways to mitigate the risk, which I've discussed in this video. But if you're watching this video and you're still, on the fence as whether you should get one or not, I do definitely think that if you're on a budget, these can be fantastic vehicles. I mean, these, I don't buy them for personal use, but I have now bought 4 of them, and I haven't regretted it yet. So if this is something that you're still interested in, even after hearing the worst of the worst, because that's what I just gave you, I made a different video talking specifically about why you should consider it. I will link that video down in the comment section down below. Please leave any questions you may have. That's all I got for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you in the future.